So here I am in Pakistan, and I ask Allah, please, please, please. And so I was so frustrated that I had gone to all these Hakims, and I thought, well, this is a bust. It's just not going to happen. And so one day I thought, okay, today, inshallah, I'm going to go out, I'm going to find a teacher, and I couldn't find. So I was in the middle of Karachi, and I went to this dawakhana. Dawakhana is where they dispense the medicines. I went to a dawakhana, and I thought, well, if nothing else, I haven't found a teacher, so I'll just stay at this dawakhana and just watch what happens here. I'll just be here and see people come and get the medicines, and maybe I'll get something from that. So I just stayed there. And I explained to them, look, I just want to observe what's going on here. And I talked to one of the people that worked there, and it was mostly Urdu. And then the man said, I told him why I was there, and he said, oh, so you're interested in learning medicine? And he said, yeah, I told him my story and why I was there, and he went away, and then he came back and he said, my brother is upstairs. He's Hakim, he'd like to talk to you. Would you like to speak with him? And so I went up and I met him, and his name was Taqiyuddin. And he said, I learned from my grandfather, who taught me in the forest, and his grandfather was Nizamuddin from Ajmer in India. And he told me, he said, when someone comes to you and they're sincere as a student, he said, you must teach them. If you want to sustain and have any access to knowledge yourself, you must teach them, and you must teach them as much as they need for absolutely nothing. So he said, if you're interested, can you be here tomorrow at 7? I said, absolutely. So I started, and it was like maybe the 4th, 5th day. I got there at 3 minutes after 7. Every day I was there at 7, and about 4 or 5 days later, I got there at 3 minutes after 7, and he said, I don't feel like teaching today, so can you come back tomorrow? So I got the message really quickly. I had to be there at 7 every day, but he gave me as much time as I wanted. We were one day in his apartment so long that we didn't realize, we were going through his grandfather's notebooks, and he was translating from Urdu to me, and I was making notes, and we were studying like that. One day we were there so long that we didn't realize that it had been raining an inch an hour outside. And when we finished the day of teaching, I went outside, and people were not walking up and down the streets of Sadr. They were paddling their boats, and they were swimming. There was a flood. It was this enormous flood. So, alhamdulillah. And his family was an interesting tradition. His family came from a tradition of Rajasthanis who were historically soldiers. And one of his great-grandfathers was a military person. He and his fathers and in their family, that's all they had done, was they were warriors, fighting all the time. And this man, one day, he was a very special person, obviously. He left his sort of palace and gone out on his horse, and he was riding, and on a hill above him, there was an old man making wudu, ablution with water, and he was making his wudu. This is one of our terms. Wudu is our ablutions. We wash hands, face, before praying. He was making his wudu, and the water was coming down the side of the hill and splashed on this man, and he was enraged, ran up the hill on his horse and ran over the man with his horse, and then rode off and went back to his castle sort of place, his whatever. And then he had deep remorse. Like, why did I do that? And he had such remorse, he personally decided he would get up and go and find this man. Went and found the man, picked him up, took him back, and then kept his servants away and said, no, I will take care of this man. And, nursed his wounds, took care of him. And the man said, this was by Allah. And it's because you are not meant to be a soldier anymore. You're meant to be a Hakim. And so you are my student now. And that was his student. There was the shift in that family from being warriors, but they always retained some of their warrior spirit, which I think was a pretty healthy thing. So that's kind of history. And then, I was fortunate when I came back to America after that study. I met a medical doctor who was a mainstream medicine from UCLA, MD, and I opened a practice with him in Santa Barbara. And he said, I will teach you mainstream medicine, physical diagnosis, modern disease entities, understanding, et cetera, et cetera. He said, it's really easy. He insisted on it being really easy. And we had a clinic there for about 6 years. and a family practice. And in that family practice, the reason we opened a clinic there was because I treated him homeopathically, and we started seeing clients privately, and he saw the results of homeopathy and was so pleased, he insisted that we open a clinic, the two of us together. So he is another one of the people I apprenticed, was fortunate enough to apprentice to for 6 years, and to learn actually physical diagnosis, maybe in a little more detail than they learn in medical school nowadays, which is, it's gone downhill. You know, physical diagnosis, that is palpation, a lot of the stuff that they used to do, and they rely on technology and equipment nowadays to use to do. So I had a family, in that period of time, we treated just about everything that came to us, infectious disease of all kinds, pneumonias, staph infections, and we almost never used antibiotics. And in cases where I would get to a point where I'd be using homeopathic remedies and herbal things, he would say, I'd say, you know, I think we need to come in with antibiotics. It's a child with high fever and pneumonia. And I'd say, I think the remedy's not working, and he said, no, let's try one more remedy. So he would push a little more than I would, and that was a very unusual situation. But as a result, we used antibiotics. I mean, I could count on my fingers the times we even had to resort to antibiotics. So that was a very fortunate time for me. And so homeopathy has been one of my primary modes of therapy, because it really does work, and it's remarkable stuff, along with everything else that I'm going to talk about today.